Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
I get the comb.
Very good.
All right. Okay, why don't you just give me your name and where you're from and what branch of the service you're in?
Joe Murphy, Newport. I've been there all my life. My family.
Well, how about the service? What branch of
Okay.
the service were
I
you?
was in the infantry, the 101st Division, and I went from Newport to Florida for in the Army. I was in the Inducted in Herkimer, and I went to Florida for
It doesn't matter if you make mistakes.
Yeah, that's where I started my instructions, and I was there from, I think, probably 4 months, and then I moved to, I went to Boston and went on a ship to England, and from England I went to France and into Germany. I was more or less I got there after the war was over, actually probably a month's time, and they were taking a lot of the people that were there, the men that were already there and had been in combat. They started shipping them to Japan, but then they had to quit before they got too far, and it wound up we turned us around because we were the last ones in, and turned us around and started us for Japan, and we got as far as Chicago, and that was the end of that. And I went to Camp Campbell in Kentucky, and that's when I got discharged from there.
So you never got to Japan. That was all
No,
done by
no,
the
that
time
was, yeah, it was.
Good.
We
Did you do anything with the rebuilding effort? In Europe?
No,
when you went
none at all. No, about the only thing I did do was we had a compound for German soldiers that they had to, when they got all done, they talked, got them going back home. Ones that they didn't, ones they wanted to do, and just to get their name, address, and where they were going, I guess.
So you took all that information from the German soldiers?
Yes,
that were there?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They had them in barbed wire fences, and we weren't there very long. Mm-hmm. And I wound up down in Karlsruhe, Germany, mm-hmm. and that's where I came back from there.
Now, when you entered the war, things were
Yeah,
ramping up.
I went in 45, and I was out 46, so I wouldn't just, I went out in November of 45. And
Did you say you enlisted?
No, I was drafted.
You were drafted.
No, I didn't.
So, so did they do that? Did they draft you particularly to go in for the follow-up effort, or was it right at the end of the war, so they weren't sure it was going to be
well,
over?
they didn't know it was going to be over when I got enlisted, and they were teaching us what was going on.
Okay, how old were you then?
18.
Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I'd love for your input on what things were like at home as the war was going on, because you were right here in Newport in Mohawk Valley.
Yeah.
And what was going on? What was that wartime like before you were drafted?
Well, of course, all the men that were able to were going in the Army or something, and then we had all kinds of rations and for them. Tickets that you bought your groceries with, and you could buy so much, and butter and everything else in short. Anything that edible, they had to use it. It was all short. Gasoline was practically nothing. They didn't have any. And you had to ration it. I don't remember how much they were or anything, but everything was tight. And of course, somebody was going. Some people were going all the while, going out of town. Several of them, you know, well, lots of them that were able.
How would you compare what life was like at that time? You talked about the rationing, and how do you think that's so different from what it would be like now for people who are? I mean, we stay home and we watch the war on TV.
Yeah.
How are people different from then to now?
Well, there wasn't any TV. That was the first thing, and it was all by word of mouth or letters or postage or something like that. Telephone, and
You were a teenager then.
Yes. Well, of course, not my last year, but next to my last year of school, we went out and picked up stuff. Let's see, they were making things to float on for the Navy, and they took feeds and put them in bags, and that was to hold them up, and things like that. And we had butter ration, gas ration, and all that stuff.
Do you remember any stories from that time about the rationing or things that you might remember in particular?
Oh, nothing much.
Were you from a big family? Or?
No.
No.
I just had one brother, and he was a year and a half younger than I was, and he wound up in the Navy. He went in the Navy, hung pretty close to the end of the war, and he got out, and then he went back in the service. He went in the Army, and he was in for 25 or 30 years, so he made a career out of it.
So your family didn't really have a taste of having people who were related to them right in the war during the hottest part of the war.
Well, I had a lot of cousins. I had, let's see, I had 5 cousins in Pearl Harbor. And none of them got hurt then. And then I had 2 that went in afterward, 2 or 3 afterwards. 2 of my cousins, my girl cousins, were in. And they were secretaries, and they went in, like secretaries, so 2 girls.
Right, we don't hear from very many women who were in the service at that time.
Yeah, they were working in Rome, and where they were putting stuff together for the Army there, and Air Force. Well, the Air Force was over there. And they worked on the base there in Rome, and then they enlisted and went in the Army, the 2 of them, 2 girls. They were all, the whole family was there, that family. And I had several other nieces that went, or not nieces, cousins, boys that went in different service. I forget how many altogether, probably close to 15. They were scattered all over.
What were children, young people, whether it was a little younger than you or teenagers, what were you understanding about the war? What did you know about the war?
Just about everything. The newspapers and radios. We had radios, and we got all the news and stuff that was coming in.
Do you remember Pearl Harbor?
Yes. Yeah.
What were you doing, and how did you live?
Oh, of course, I was younger then. I was probably 13, 14 years old, I forget. But we were all surprised, of course, and we didn't know what was going on, but it didn't take long before things started going fast. And they were sending them all, of course, sending people all over the world then, and they continued to send them. Yeah.
Was it scary?
Well, at 13, 14 years old, you know, you couldn't scare them. You know, they were scary when they got there, but and I was too when I went in. You know, after I went through basic training and the instructors put it right to you, so they, you know, so they put the fear of God right at you. Really, if you don't keep your head down, you're going to lose it. And so, yeah, it was scary in that sense.
So when you got over there and things really quieted down, you said it was
Yes.
near the end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when they said the war was over?
I think I was in Boston, I think, when they were just getting ready to put us on the boat. And I think I was in Boston.
Were you relieved?
What?
Were you relieved that it was over? How did you
Well,
feel about
no,
it?
because we didn't know. We knew it was over, but what's going to happen now? And when they put us on the boat, we didn't know what we were doing. You know, what we were going to. How come they were sending us, really? Because we didn't. You know, they don't tell you anything. Just here, you get on and go. So that was all.
So when you got over there, how did you feel about that? I mean, what was going through your mind at that time? Do you remember?
Well, of course, it was all destroyed. Everything, you know, and Germany was destroyed, and of course, France wasn't any better. And the people didn't have any homes, and we were feeding them. A lot of the people there, and the Germans, they were shipping them back home as fast as they could. They had to, of course, they talk to them and see where they'd been, and probably they'd lie back at you, you know, if they were. But yeah.
So you were actually giving aid and help to.
Yeah, that was mostly what we were doing, getting them started, just the basic things. Soup kitchens and stuff like that.
What was your reaction when you saw that destruction? I mean, everything was just destroyed. It had to be.
Oh, yeah, it was just. You can't really say it was because it was cities were right flat. Yeah, I went through a couple where, you know, they just bombed them right to nothing. And they were starting to pick up stuff. And they, of course, the German people are awful workers anyway, and they right away quick started and building all over again.
Did you see any of the results from maybe people who were liberated from the concentration camps and some of those things? Did you experience any of that since it was right at the end of the war?
No, I didn't. No. No.
And they were getting you ready to ship you off to
Japan,
you
yeah.
said, yeah.
But then they changed their mind and shipped us back.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about that?
Well, it was nice. We were heading for home then. Yeah.
Right. Bet it was.
Yeah.
How about the reception for soldiers coming home? How do you feel about the reception for people at home?
Well, I don't know. You know, there wasn't in Newport. You didn't do too much. You know, they glad to see you back, and you were all in one piece. And yeah, we lost some boys that got killed, and you know, we knew that. And of course, that was it. But there wasn't any. You know, it was all over the country. Of course, they were having parties and singing in the streets and everything else. But you know, it wasn't, Russ, it wasn't that much. He just went back and went to work.
Small town, go on with life.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Ian, well, after the war, I'm sure it was such a mixed emotional time. Because people were happy,
Yeah.
and yet you had a lot of people probably close to you who were mourning.
Yeah, yeah, and a couple of my cousins didn't come out too good. They didn't get hurt or anything, but they psychologically they didn't do too good. But they eventually they got straightened out pretty good, but not really good. Never, they never really. They had it on their mind all the while, because they had two of the boys were two of them were in Guadalcanal, and that stuff like that.
Did they ever share those experiences, or wouldn't they?
No. They just say, I don't know nothing. And they, when you run into them today, the same thing. Of course, you get to the young ones. The ones that are there now are the same thing, They get into it and they don't want to. They don't say nothing.
Were you understanding when you came back, and you didn't see that hand-to-hand kind of combat, but you saw the devastation, you saw the destruction?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did you understand them better because of that?
Not right at the time. No, because it was an emotional thing that we knew the guys that were ahead of us had some awful work. So, we didn't. That came on a little later, after they got straightened around.
So after the war, you came home. Now, were you before you left? Did you have a girlfriend or something? Did you leave just your parents behind, or some other people waiting for you?
Yeah, my mother. I had a girlfriend, but didn't get too much writing out of her. So I married this one.
Oh, so you came back and and tell me about how you got to marry that one. Tell me about what went on.
Oh, it wasn't too long afterwards. What?
4 years.
3 years. Yeah, we went together for 3 years or so. And the kids started coming, and we had family.
Tell us a little about your family.
Oh. Well, we got 11 children, and they're all in good shape, and they're still, most of them right around Newport. We got one in Syracuse, and the two boys down in south there. That's about it.
You have grandchildren?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how many? You stopped counting?
Last count there were 25.
Tell us, do you think they're 25?
25, she said.
25 grandchildren?
Yeah.
And 4 great-grandchildren.
Well, those 25 grandchildren can look back and they can know that their grandfather served in the military, and they can know about the things that happened in some of the wars, World War II, and then even subsequent wars. What do you think that you would want your grandchildren to know about that time period?
Well, anything that they might want to know, that I did. Yeah.
Do you share your stories with them?
Yeah, if we get at it sometimes, and once, not too much. So I'm of course, not going as far as I thought that that we were all ready to go to. That wasn't a letdown. It wasn't, but I never wanted to say that, brag about what I did, because there's so many other ones that did a lot more than I did.
It's amazing how people who've been in the service have done different levels of things, and every one of them, no matter how severe their action was or not, yours was serving people and helping them at that point.
Yeah.
Everybody says the same thing. They said, I didn't do very much, and I was one of the lucky ones. That's amazing.
That's true. That's true. You look at the rows of monuments, and that there, with the grace of God, could be you.
When we pass these kinds of things on to the children, I always think I want to give them a sense of how different things are for them than maybe they were for you and for children of that era.
Mhm.
And how is life in Newport different from then?
Well, it's a lot faster. Every kid in Newport's got a car. And they drive 100 miles an hour.
In those days, they couldn't get gasoline.
Yeah, and my mother didn't have a car till she was 45, 50 years old. I had one when I got out of the service. I bought that when I got out of the service, but that was secondhand. Money wasn't like it is now. With 10 cents to go to the movies and go to work. When I first went to work, it was probably $1 or $1.50 an hour. And raising kids on that. So, yeah.
How did you, you talked about the service, did you feel well prepared when you went over?
Well, we thought we were, we didn't. Of course, we've been learning rifles and pistols and machine guns, and we knew what we were supposed to do, but we didn't have any inkling of what we were getting into, because we just had a first sergeant, and he'd chew you right out and give you the old bat, and he'd tell you keep your head down, and you ain't going to be there, and try to listen to him and not tell him he was crazy, because he was. He'd been when my first sergeant was he'd been in the Aleutian Islands for about 4 years, and they shipped him right from the Aleutian Islands to Florida, and he was terrible shape.
You saw a lot. It seems like you saw a lot of the residuals from people who'd already been through combat.
Some, not too many, and of course they were teaching us, and few boys that came home and had been wounded and stuff like that.
What's your best story about when you went overseas?
Oh. Gee, I don't know, really. No, I can't.
Can't think of any?
Not right now.
No?
No. But, well, I did. I came back on the Queen Mary. And I don't know how many was on there, thousands probably. And when some of them, they started a poker game on the way home, and some of them had some money when they got home, and some of them didn't. But most of us didn't have any. But yeah, that was probably the highlight of the trip.
Certain excitement in that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And when we were in England, before we went over into France, we were riding in barracks, and they weren't even letting us out of barracks. They were, they were letting us on the grounds, but not in the villages or anything like that. I don't know, because they didn't want us wandering around, I guess. Didn't fraternize with them too much.
And probably many things were destroyed at that point too.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
Did you? How about going out of the country? What did you feel like? A person from Newport, it's a small town in central New York, and suddenly you're going across the ocean. You're going to these other countries that you really wouldn't know much about the culture. What did you feel about that?
Well, I don't really know. We were all grouped together, and we didn't. We hung right around like the guys in charge would tell you, here's what you're going to do, and you do it. That's all. And we didn't get too much far away from any barracks or anything.
What about your friendships that you made in the service? Do you have any real close friendships you could think of?
Well, there was, let's see, when we started out, there was four boys and me from they were from Little Falls. And one from Middleville. And of course, we had a little time in between going from basic training to going over, probably 2 or 3 weeks or something. We went out and around, looked the places over, and then some of them they all came back, but a couple of them, I think there's four of them are dead now. So
when you came back, you kept those friendships up?
Yeah, some, certain, not too much, but we'd see each other or get together and visit a little bit once in a while. But then they, of course, when you get a family, and they had families too, so we didn't get really too chummy.
Was there something special about those relationships that are different than others?
Yeah, just that you've been there and done it. That's the thing. That's what it was mostly. Get up in the morning and get out and get going. Yeah, that's about all there was to it.
You were dependent upon each other too.
Yeah,
at that point.
yeah, sure. We wanted to be dependent, know them, that we would help them and they'd help us. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make buddies out of them, and we'd have some ruckuses once in a while. You'd get stretched right out and have a fist fight, and next morning you were all right and go right at it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think that some of that was just from the tensions? Were there tensions about just being?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And our cadre, the sergeants and everything, they were around in the morning kicking us out and get going. And of course, we didn't want to go. But and we'd go all right, but under protest, we hang back as much as we can, and then they'd take us and run us for about an hour, and that would take that right out of you too, till the next morning. So
What do they feed soldiers?
Oh, everything that's edible. Some of it isn't, but
Now, when you're in basic and when you were in transport and that type of thing, what kind of duties did you guys have to do, other than what you had been trained to do when you get to battle?
not much of anything. Just, get on the boat and not too much on that. Because they had, on the boat, they always had their own cooks and that stuff. And everybody, they took care of the boat.
So you had a lot of waiting time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hurry up and wait.
What did you do mostly when you were waiting?
Sit around, chew the fat, smoke cigarettes. That's something that they give them to us. Yeah. Free. All you wanted.
Yeah, that was pretty common at that time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Lucky Strikes and Camels and all you wanted.
Yeah. They used to sponsor everything too, the Lucky Strikes and Camels.
Yeah.
And cigarettes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Did you hear them a lot on the radio at that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. No, they were just the other ways. No one should touch them.
What's your favorite things to remember about that time period in history?
Well, when it was all over, that was the thing. Definitely. Just it was quite a it was a great relief for us because we knew where we had been headed, and yeah.
And then when you got home and you started to build your family, how was life different than before the war?
Oh.
Do you think people were they reacting differently? Did they have a different mindset?
Oh, definitely, yes. This isn't going to happen again. In 4 years' time, it did. It went into Korea. Yeah, this is a big one. We're not going to do this anymore. And yeah, that was a big thing. No. Of course, a lot of guys went right back into service and got out of it.
Yeah, I wondered, had you considered that at all?
No, I didn't.
No, you figured you did your time, that was
Yeah,
it?
I got out and went to work and said, that's enough of that.
Yeah. What do you think about the wartime now, what's gone on now in history?
No. I don't think we should be there at all. No way. No, it's never going to end.
Well, now, right about now is when they'd be dealing with the destruction, much like what you saw.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do now, is put it back together. But I don't know. I just don't know. Can't see it.
Different kind of war.
Yes, altogether. Altogether. Well, yeah, I got one of my grandsons in Kuwait, and he's in electronics business, satellites and that stuff. And he's 500 miles away from the war, but he couldn't get hurt or something too. But right now he's that far away, and he's doing his business right from there, and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so.
Whole different type of thing, right?
Yeah. And we were, let's see, I think we were probably 15 days getting over on the boat. And Now they can stick them in an airplane and they're there overnight.
15 days on the boat.
Yeah,
So equally that much time back.
yeah, pretty close to it.
Yeah. But being on the Queen Mary was okay.
Come a
huh?
little faster, yeah,
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 yeah, that's great.
yeah.
If there was something that you wanted to end with, because we're talking about grandchildren and keeping history, and that's what we're doing, is we're trying to retain history even by doing this,
Hmm.
this type of project. What do you think needs to be said?
Reading,
Hmm?
reading.
Reading?
Hmm.
You want to elaborate on that?
Just to go back and get some of the stories that came from from that time, and read them, and that's a big thing. I don't think they do much, but that's, you know, they could, even if there's something on the television or movie or anything that, of course the movies and television would be what they wanted, but find out that way, or talk to somebody that's been there. Yeah, go down to Washington and go to the monuments.
Have you been able to see some of those?
Yeah, yeah, we've been down there a couple of times and went to well, the Vietnam thing and World War II. Or they're building that now, but some of the other ones.
Yeah. How does that strike you
Oh, what?
when you see those? When you see them?
Oh. There, but for the grace of God go I. That's all, you know, that's it.
It's powerful to see all those people who've given their lives, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And it is, it's hard.
Well, we appreciate your service very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we do. And we appreciate that you come and talk to us about it.
Yeah, I hope that, you know, what you were thinking of her.
Well, to keep telling the stories, we need to know about all the different people
Yeah.
who've
Yes, that's true.
been places,
Yeah.
and who contributed and were willing to serve their country or been called to serve their country. You know, some of the people who come in who asked for it, they said, "I'm going to enlist. This is what I want to do." And other people have come in and they said, "You know what? I didn't bargain for it. They called me. I had to go."
Yeah, yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
But at that time, there was some people, you know, that they said, "Well, I don't want to go," and they'd go buy a farm, 2 cows, and say, but they weren't really the happiest people in the world, or, you know, something would happen to them. Not physically, maybe, but when they saw what was coming back, then they'd change their tune.
Well, it's so emotional any way you look at it.
Oh yes, yes. Hmm.
Whether
Yeah.
you went before or after or during.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know of any people's lives that weren't touched by it at that time?
Very few. Very few. You know, probably maybe one in Newport, you know. But they did what they wanted to do, and
So entire towns, communities were affected.
oh yes, yes. Yep. We right now we're putting out, well, we just put the flags out last week. We got about 400 or more in Newport that they were in wars. They didn't all get killed, but they were there. And that's a lot for a place that size.
Yeah. How many people are in Newport, you know, approximately?
Oh, around 1,000, I think, somewhere like that. No, I'm not too sure. No.
That's a huge percentage.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they go way back into the Revolutionary War.
I remember
Civil
that from
War.
being a kid.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Very historic place.
Mm-hmm.
The average people, like you and me.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's fair to say that the average people, like you and like me, are the people that have saved the world?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, they have. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Sure.
We appreciate you.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Thank you so much. We
Yeah.
take a picture of